On February 6, 1951, hundreds of people boarded the broker train, expecting a smooth journey home. But just a few minutes into the journey, the train went too fast around a curve it was never meant to take at that speed. In the blink of an eye, cars derailed, passengers were thrown from their seats, and twisted wreckage scattered across the tracks in the quiet town of Woodbridge, New Jersey. 85 people lost their lives. Over 500 were injured. How did a normal train ride turn into New Jersey's deadliest rail disaster? Was it human error? Or was there a bigger problem hiding within the railway's operations? Stay with us as we uncover the chilling story behind one of America's deadliest rail disasters. Before we dive into the background of this tragic train disaster, I invite you to subscribe this channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our train disaster documentaries. Woodbridge Township is a town in New Jersey, USA. As of 2020, it had 103,639 residents, but back in 1950, only 35,758 people lived there. The town is located about 32.5 kilometers southwest of New York City and 101 kilometers northeast of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. At the time of the crash, Woodbridge was served by the Perth, Amboy, and Woodbridge Railroad, which is now part of the North Jersey coastline. Back then, construction of the New Jersey Turnpike, a major highway, was underway in the area. To avoid the construction, trains had to use temporary tracks built on an embankment, with wooden bridges over certain sections. These temporary tracks had a speed limit of 40 kilometers per hour, much slower than the usual 97 kilometers per hour. Pennsylvania Railroad, PRR, train. Number 733 was an express passenger train running from Jersey City to Bay Head, both in New Jersey. It had 11 large passenger cars pulled by a heavy steam locomotive, PRR Class K4 number 2445. The K4 was introduced in 1914 and was known for its size and power. It was 83 feet long, weighing 234.6 metric tons with its tender. This locomotive had 3 driving axles, along with 2 front and 1 rear axle, and it carried a tender with up to 15 tons of coal. It could produce 3,286 horsepower and reach speeds of 140 kilometers per hour. The specific engine used on the day of the accident, number 2445, was built in 1917. On that day, the 57-year-old engineer, Mr. Fitzsimmons, was operating the train, with Mr. Bishop working as the conductor. Unfortunately, the name of the fireman remains unknown. On February 6, 1951, PRR train number 733 left Exchange Place Station in Jersey City at 5 p.m. This station was the main hub for the Pennsylvania Railroad at that time. The train was unusually crowded because many workers from the nearby Jersey Central Railroad were on strike, packing the 11 passenger cars with over 1,000 people. A week before the accident, train crews were told that starting on February 6th at 1:01 p.m., trains would need to use a temporary track with wooden bridges in Woodbridge. This change was made to allow the construction of a new overpass for the New Jersey Turnpike. The speed limit on this temporary track was lowered to 40 kilometers per hour instead of the usual 97 kilometers per hour. Before the train left the station, the conductor, Mr. Bishop, reminded the engineer, Mr. Fitzsimmons, about the slower speed limit for the temporary route. Over the next 40 minutes, Mr. Fitzsimmons followed his usual routine and forgot about the temporary construction zone ahead. As the train approached the site, it was traveling at over 80 kilometers per hour, much faster than allowed. Around 5:40 p.m., Mr. Bishop, the conductor, realized the train was going too fast. He tried to pull the emergency brake cord, but the train cars were overcrowded, and he couldn't reach it because of the packed passengers. At 5:43 p.m., train number 733 entered the temporary tracks on the wooden bridge at double the safe speed. The heavy engine caused the tracks to shift, making the rails spread apart as the train took a sharp left turn. Engine number 2445 almost made it around the curve but lost balance tipping over and sliding off the embankment onto a nearby road. The first 8 cars behind it also derailed. Cars 1 and 2 slid onto their sides and came to a stop. Cars 3 and 4 crashed into each other in midair and rolled down a 26-foot slope, causing the most damage and many deaths. The impact destroyed the wooden bridge, leaving cars 5 and 6 hanging dangerously over the edge of a road underpass. Cars 7 and 8 also derailed but stayed upright. The crash killed 85 people and injured over 500, making it the deadliest rail disaster in U.S. history during peacetime. The crash was so powerful that it shook the ground and shattered windows in nearby buildings. Since the accident happened in a busy area during the day, many residents rushed to help the injured even before emergency responders arrived. Most of the fatalities were in the front cars, where the impact destroyed the cars or crushed passengers as the cars rolled over. Rescue teams made a disturbing discovery under the broken wooden bridge, where cars 5 and 6 were left hanging. Some victims were found on the road under the bridge, but their injuries didn't seem like they had been thrown from the train. Soon, the responders uncovered a heartbreaking truth. Some passengers had survived the crash but were trapped in the hanging train cars. As the daylight faded, these passengers looked down from the damaged cars and thought they saw a river below. Believing they were jumping into water, they leaped, not knowing it was just rain-soaked asphalt. This tragic mistake cost them their lives. Mr. Fitzsimmons survived the crash, trapped inside the overturned locomotive until local residents pulled him to safety. When questioned by police, he initially insisted that he had followed the 40 kilometers per hour speed limit, recalling that his conductor had reminded him of the restriction just before they left the station. Fitzsimmons claimed, "I slowed down when I saw the yellow warning light." However, investigators soon realized there was a flaw in his statement. There were no warning lights at the construction site. The Pennsylvania Railroad had decided that a notice to workers was enough and didn't install additional signals to remind engineers of the temporary speed limit. Fitzsimmons later admitted he knew there were no signals. He believed he had done everything right, but likely fell into a routine, forgetting about the speed restriction that day. Investigators concluded that excessive speed caused the accident, but they couldn't prove Fitzsimmons had intentionally sped. He was an experienced driver familiar with the route, which may have made him overlook the temporary track conditions. Sadly, it was determined that if the train had not been so overcrowded, Mr. Bishop, the conductor, might have been able to reach the emergency brake cord and slow the train in time. He tried his best to prevent the disaster, but the crowded conditions made it impossible to stop the tragedy. Immediately after the accident, the Pennsylvania Railroad began installing warning signals at temporary slow-speed zones, spending millions of dollars to put them in place within a few weeks. Initially, 84 PRR employees were charged with manslaughter, but the legal proceedings were dropped within 2 years. The trials would have cost the county over $2 million, equal to more than $23 million today, making it too expensive to continue. Survivors and families of the victims filed lawsuits against the PRR, leading to settlements totaling about $75 million at the time, equivalent to nearly $877 million today. However, the final amount the railroad paid remains undisclosed. Although Mr. Fitzsimmons continued working for the PRR until his retirement in 1953, he was never allowed to operate a train again and was assigned other tasks. He passed away in 1976, shortly after the 25th anniversary of the disaster, at the age of 82. Many survivors stayed connected through a group they called the Survivors Club. On the first anniversary of the crash, they gathered at the site to remember those lost. The 1951 Woodbridge Train Derailment remains one of the deadliest rail disasters in U.S. history. It serves as a haunting reminder of the importance of safety protocols and the devastating consequences when things go wrong. But what do you think? Could more have been done to prevent this tragedy? Or was it an unavoidable accident caused by human error? How far do you think modern technology has come in preventing disasters like this? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your opinions in the comments below.